Hey, hello everybody. Scott Golden here with the World Class Championship Wrestling Review Series and the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you that are seasoned veterans of what we do around here. We are going episodically through the World Class Championship Wrestling Series. Got over 100 episodes in, probably closer to 120 by now, and we're going to have the whole series as best is available by the end of all this, hopefully within the next month or so. That's the goal anyway. And then we'll move on to another territory. But some interesting stuff as we have a few first run matches and then the duration of an angle that I don't quite understand why they did it this late. But anyway, first match in, we've got the Missing Link and Pat Rose. I think we've actually seen this before. I know Rose has been a reasonable perennial enhancement talent over the last month or so. Missing Link, obviously a standout star in Akbar's current stable. We have not seen the full-time return of Gary Hart yet, but as best I know, that is coming. Anyway, shots by the Link with the headbutt in the corner, and then he misses one and headbutts himself into the corner, so to speak, on this June 23rd edition. And, the Missing Link really has not been fully challenged as of yet, but they do try to protect him. He does make his way to the second rope on the inside and poises for a diving headbutt right into the lower spinal area of his opponent. That diving headbutt seems to be something that the Link likes a lot of. Link also not afraid to bite and break other rules out and out. He doesn't seem to care about anything other than, having chaos and getting a victory if he can. Certainly the Missing Link, an interesting character. I wish there'd been a little more character development of who he is and what he's about. Anyway, Link is, again with that diving headbutt, this time leads him to the victory, but he uses two in a row. One while his opponent standing, the other while the opponent is on the canvas, gains the victory in that fashion. Then we go to an NWA hearing on the six-man tag team championships. Freebirds claiming that an illegal man made the cover and the pinfall on one of the Freebirds at the Texas Stadium show back in May. So here we are, the end of June, 6 weeks later. That's how long it takes to get an NWA hearing, apparently. It is decided that the Von Erichs and Freebirds, who already have signed another contract for a six-man championship match, all six men will be in the ring this time, and the first man to get pinfall wins the championship for the team. The NWA does uphold the decision about the six-man championships. Earl Wilburn is the gentleman who I guess is involved with all of this, the NWA representative. Not somebody I've heard of, and doesn't exactly play a role here that's terribly necessary. Anyway, we move into the first of the double main events. This time, Gordy and Jimmy Garvin versus Adams and Kevin Von Erich. Just seems to be a match kind of thrown together a little bit. Not particularly a fan of the match, just because, we've seen all four of these guys in various pairings. And it's interesting because, obviously, Garvin later in the WCW years will become a Freebird more continually with Michael Hayes in the early 90s. But here, I guess an honorary Freebird. Adams and Garvin still unfinished. The Stella May aspect still involved in that. And then you've got Kevin Von Erich in there, who I guess you could say still wants to go at Gordy after all this time. But it just seems like a match that's there for the sake of a match being there. Back body drop by Adams onto Garvin. Doesn't really seem like these tag matches, accomplish a heck of a lot. And to me, TV, every segment should have some form of goal, and this just feels like we're here to put matches on a card to fill out a TV format. Not to say the match itself is bad, it's perfectly fine as a standalone contest. Even see Garvin use the hot shot on his opponent, among other things, and he certainly has the match will and control, at least up through the middle half of it. But it just seems like an odd pairing with new talent in town. Gordy back in the ring, and he goes for his diving knee drop. Doesn't get where he wants to get with that. A tag, and then suddenly there's a cage on the outside, kind of a penalty cage, and they throw people in there. I'm not a fan of how this match was put together at all, and the penalty cage makes things more confusing because the announcers do talk about it being there, but they don't really set up why it's there. They didn't really plug that it was going to be there next week, last week, and I'm just not a fan of that sort of thing. Gordy goes to the outside to try to help, his parties not get tied up in that. And then we see the claw attempt by Kevin Von Erich, who eventually does hit a stomach claw temporarily. But it's almost like we're to a point in world class where you need to get away from the primary stories. And then we see Stella Mae French come in from the outside, in through the crowd, and trying to get at Garvin, who's in the penalty cage. She's nuts. She goes at that cage harder than many of today's wrestlers go at a buffet. Anyway, so Garvin gets back in the ring. She's not withheld, and the officials come and get at her, arrest her. This causes Garvin to be able to gain partial victory before going up into the lights on his own right, drop kicks and the like. But Garvin gets a cheating victory here, and French still not avenged. So, obviously maybe there's a plan down the road for something like this. Maybe they're wrestling at house shows and we don't know it. But anyway, we then see Gordy and Iceman King Parsons hook it up. Parsons a good guy, but I'm not necessarily sure he's 100% ready for Gordy. He tends to go with the smaller combatants, and that seems to work for him better. And then we see, Gino Hernandez out there post the Adams and Gordy match. I'm sorry, blended matches together because my notes skipped a few lines here. We do have the Gino Hernandez and Iceman King Parsons as the main event. Hernandez has in fact been the America's champion more often than not as of late. This is actually a really good match. Lots of stalling, but at the same time, when needed to turn up, Parsons is made to look like $1 million. It's clear that Hernandez knows how to pace a match. It's also clear that he doesn't like to waste a amount of emotion. He uses a weapon on Iceman King Parsons. However, stuffs it back into his trunks before the referee finds a way to disqualify him for it. Sneaks back over, uses it again. The referee trying to find it, trying to get him caught with it to report it to the National Wrestling Alliance, but that doesn't happen in the way that is expected. With just a few minutes left, we see one of the Akbar and the Irwin brothers, Scott and Bill, make their way out. They believe it's Scott that starts whipping, literally, with a horsewhip on Parsons. And so, obviously, that leads to a win for Parsons via disqualification. Hernandez turns his back on the whole thing, but we've got some heat there because now the Destroyers, who were the Destroyers, who now are the Irwins, have more of an issue than ever before with Iceman King Parsons. So, different gimmicks, but same deal. Bill and Scott Irwin are going to be face to face with Iceman King Parsons on a pretty regular basis. This makes Gino Hernandez happy because he gets away without having to do too much. And we'll be back with more right after this.